Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to another week's episode of the Trail Talk High Pointing podcast. This week's guest is Justin Sutton from Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, I wanted to have Justin on the podcast not only to share his high pointing story, but also to speak about the role that he serves in as a part of the High Pointers Club. Justin manages all the High Pointers Club memberships. So you've heard a lot about the Apex to Zenith magazine on this podcast. And for those of you who don't know, that is the official High Pointers Club magazine. But the only way to get it is to be a member of the High Pointers Club. And I like to feature people who serve a role within the High Pointers Club because it's something that ultimately they don't have to do, but they choose to volunteer to do this work to make the club what it is today, which is a resource for high pointers to meet each other, share in successes, and learn more. So if you have any questions about your High Pointers Club membership, you can reach out to Justin in his email that I'll include in the show notes in the podcast and YouTube channel. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify and would like to see the video interviews that I do, check out the podcast YouTube channel with the same title. Likewise, if you're a YouTube viewer of the show and would like to listen to it on the go, download an episode on Apple or Spotify podcasts. And for those of you who have reached out to me through the podcast email, which is 50stateshighpointingpodcast@gmail.com, and 50 is the number, so 50 states highpointingpodcast@gmail.com. I have received some messages from people with very unique backgrounds and high pointing stories that I can't wait for you to hear. So thanks for reaching out. And thanks again for listening, and please enjoy this week's episode with Justin Sutton. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Trail Talk High Pointing podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, and the high pointer we're speaking with today is Justin Sutton from Mississippi. Justin is also the membership chair of the High Pointers Club. So he handles all the memberships, updating them, and letting you know when your membership runs out, which is important if you want to receive the coveted Apex to Zenith magazine. So Justin, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So can you tell the listeners what got you started in the outdoors and what got you high pointing eventually?
Yeah, I probably got a different story than a lot of the folks I've heard on the podcast, in that I grew up and did not think of the outdoors as like this great place just to go and hang out. Like, I loved playing outside when I was a kid. We played sports growing up, played sports in high school, but the actual outdoor activities, fishing, hiking, that kind of stuff didn't appeal to me. And it may have been because I grew up in a relatively flat place called Brandon, Mississippi, right outside Jackson. You know, we don't really have mountains and such there, but
Sure.
It wasn't really ever my idea of fun. And we were actually on a bachelor trip with a buddy about to get married. We were in North Carolina. And that morning we woke up, everybody's like, oh, we should go hiking up this mountain. And a friend and I were both like, this sounds terrible. Let's just go back to the golf course and go play another round. And of course he wanted to. He had hit a double eagle the day before, so he was definitely wanting to go play golf again. And we got sat around. I find, no, let's not be jerks. Let's go and let's go hiking with everybody else. And so we went, and the whole time I'm like, this is just not my idea of fun, da-da-da. And we got to the top of a mountain, and when I was standing there at the top of that mountain, I was like, okay, this is incredible. You're looking out, I think it's called Mount Baldy in North Carolina. You're looking out and you can just see everything. It was clear. And I stood there, I was like, this is awesome. And after that, I was hooked and wanted to keep going and doing more. And stumbled into high pointing actually by accident, trying to find places to take my son hiking when he was younger. He was about 4, and stumbled across this whole idea of high pointing. And I've always kind of been a geography nerd anyway. I used to watch the Weather Channel growing up as much as I watched cartoons because of the maps. And found out about high pointing. And after that, we took off at Louisiana. And after that, we just kind of been hooked ever since. So
That's cool. You know, a lot of people that I ask, how did you get started? They often say that they've always been into maps and geography and lists.
Yep. It goes along with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. That's for sure. Or like whenever I have to drive somewhere far, there's a road trip involved. I always want to see what high points I'm going to pass and how can I make it work. And I know that you have a similar experience. We'll get into that later. But now you mentioned you have you have a family,
Mhm.
and are they involved in high pointing as well with you?
They are. So my oldest son's 13, and he's pretty much been, I think we've been to all the same high points now. I went on one trip without him where I got some, then I had to take him back to get them. And then my wife and I, we started dating, I guess, in 2017, got married in 2020. But she's gone on all of our trips. Also, she's got the bug. We've gone back to pick some up that my son, our 13-year-old, has that she didn't. Gone back to pick some of those up. And she's been a trooper, jumped right along some of the craziest trips we've come up with in the shortest amount of time to go find high points, and she's been right there with us doing it. And now we've got a newborn. He's I guess close to 3 months old now, so we're looking forward to getting to take him along on some adventures as well.
That's cool. Can you talk about some of those spontaneous trips that you ended up high pointing on?
Yeah. So but it's always kind of been there's always been two things kind of working against us having like really planned out high point trips. The one is just with work having the time off to go and plan in advance, and two, my son has always played baseball and typically made all-star teams. And making those all-star teams, you never knew when the season was going to end, so you couldn't sit back and say, oh, I'm going to plan this flight from. I'm gonna fly out on June 28th, and we're going to fly home on July 7th, and we're going to do all these things because you didn't know when the season was going to end. So
Hmm.
literally the season would end, you hop, you go rent a car the next day and take off and go somewhere. But some of the crazier ideas we had, there was one time it was New Year's Eve actually, and sitting around with some friends, we got to talking. I was like, yeah, my son's talked about how he's never seen snow before. And about 15 minutes later, there's a story on that we're watching. The Weather Channel, of all things, is on the TV, and they're talking about a big snow system getting ready to move through Missouri. So it goes in my head, I'm like, I wonder where the high point of Missouri is. And so I look it up and call my folks. They live north there and said, hey, I'm going to be passing through Brandon tomorrow. If y'all want to go with me to Missouri, we're going to go to the high point. They're like, why are you going there? And I'm like, well, it's snowing, and Ben's never seen the snow. He wants to go. I'm going to take him to go play in it. So we hiked up. Missouri's high point had snow on it. We drove it to Missouri, and we're the first ones there that day. No footprints, and
Cool.
found the snow and turned around and came home. Basically, just drove to Tom Sock Mountain and came back home. We've taken off on just drive all day and all night to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, up to Sioux Falls on the way to go to South Dakota's high point. It's just been, we've gotten to the point where, if it's 22, 23 hours in the car, just trade out driving to get to places. We just go and do it. And a lot of it, because like you said, when you're getting to go somewhere, you get curious, like what's all on the way there? What high points are on the way? What tri points are on the way? What really
Hmm.
random markers out here? And, so we don't drive a straight line anywhere anymore. Everything's got side
Yeah.
trips and everything off on it. A 4 hour drive might be seven when it's all said and done. But the spontaneity, I think, has been the absolute fun part of it, and not really having the ability to fly due to just scheduling and timing. I feel like we've gotten to see so much of the United States, getting to
Hmm.
do things in places we never would have gone. We would have flown somewhere not Sioux Falls if we were going to the South Dakota High Point, going to Black Elk Peak, but we went to Sioux Falls, and they have a city park that has waterfalls in it. And I'm like, where do you see that anywhere, right? And who knew? In fact, we're driving up there and we're debating about if there's waterfalls in Sioux Falls. I'm like, there's no way. We get to the city park, and my wife's like, I told you, one of the million times she's been right and I've been wrong. But but you get to see so much of the world just being spontaneous and going and seeing this country we have, which is amazing. There's so many things to see here.
Yeah.
So just I'd tell anybody, if you've got the time and you just want to go do something, just go do it. And
Yeah.
go find that high point or tri point or whatever else you want to just go look for that day. Go find it and make a memory out of it.
Yeah, you're right. It's exactly what it is. It's making memory. And I've had mothers, fathers on the show that take their kids along with them, and they talk about how unique it is to share that experience with your kids.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of my favorite ones we ever did was Mount Rogers up in Virginia. My son was six, maybe. I think it was six, and I didn't know if he's gonna be able to hike that whole way. And I'd already people would give me advice. They said, "Hey, look, if he gets tired and he doesn't want to make it, don't force him to the top because he'll never want to go out there again." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Fair enough." And we got to the wild ponies out at Mount Rogers, and he
Uh-huh.
was just hooked from that. And
Really?
it took us like 12 hours that day to get up there and back, and we left when the sun came up, and we got down when the sun was going down. And I got a picture of us right at the end before we got back off the trail. And that's going to be one of my favorite pictures I ever have with him because it was just such a fun day of just no cell service, nothing working, nothing to bother
Hmm.
you. It was 12 hours of just dad and kid and
Yeah.
walking through the mountains, and it was phenomenal.
Oh, that's so cool. Now you mentioned that you went to the UP and to
Hmm.
Minnesota, and now you're driving from coastal Mississippi.
Right.
So that's no spontaneous short drive. I know you did describe it like that, but can you talk about some of those road trips?
Yeah, I'll start. I guess I'll start with the UP. Beautiful place up there for all the
Yeah.
Upers who live up
Yeah, it
there,
is.
and y'all have a beautiful place to live. But we were I just changed jobs actually to the job I started, and we're gonna be off on a Friday, and literally just rented a car. So once we were off work that day, we loaded up and took off driving up Interstate 55 and just take
Hmm.
off going all the way from Michigan, but literally left the Gulf Coast. We live about 2 blocks from the beach, and
Oh,
went from 2 blocks from the beach to the shores of Lake Superior, um, and just in a car ride. And
yeah.
just one of those things. Just take off, you go. You trade out drivers along the way. Try to get a cat nap in, and stretch your legs places. Go find the cool places, stop and go. Like I'd never seen Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City before, so when we're going through that way, just kind of cut over a little bit, go see Arrowhead Stadium. Things you've always wanted to see. We went through Omaha. My kids, like I said, was a big baseball fan. Cut off through Omaha, could show them TD Ameritrade where they play the College World Series. And you
Hmm.
just find all these cool little things like that along the way, and you go and go and enjoy it, and that's really kind of the trick. And then find what other high points and other adventures you can put in along the way when you go. But it's like you just gotta go have fun with it, go explore and go do, and just really enjoy all the things that are out there.
Now, you mentioned in our conversation before we started recording this that you are a high school principal.
Hmm.
How do you make that work with high
Um,
pointing and just vacationing with your family?
Yeah, you have to really live it up on the weekends. And because your time off, when I was a classroom teacher, you basically got some time off in the summer. It was pretty
Hmm.
unencumbered, but as I move through administration, your time off becomes less and less,
Hmm.
and you have to, and even during that time off, the way things are released, like State Department release test data out, it never fails. Just while you're on vacation, they send out test data, that kind of stuff. So you're always kind of still working on little things while you go, but it's just about finding the time and where there is a time window to jump in, squeeze in, and make it happen. Because if you don't, you're gonna be really disappointed. I think long term, I don't think you're gonna be happy that you gave up memories and opportunities with your family if you don't do it. So we've made weekend trips down to Disney World from here. It's about 8 hour drive. Leave after a football game on Friday night and drive to Orlando, go to Disney, and come right back on Sunday morning. Um, we went on one of them. We tied into Memorial Day. We picked up Oklahoma's high point over Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Right, actually at the outbreak of COVID, just got where I was like, I can't stay in the house anymore. If we're just outside the whole time, I think we're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And so drove up to Black Mesa and hiked Black Mesa. But it's all about like if I can find 3 or 4 days together somewhere, it's like I'm getting in the car and we're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you make it happen. If you're lucky enough to have that extended time, like 5 or 6 days, that's when you do the crazy trips to the Upper Peninsula or to South Dakota or go up to New England, those kind of things, and just you just start have to jump in where you can get in and make it happen.
You're right. So, can you talk about some of your most memorable high points apart from Mount Rogers, which that was an awesome story.
Yeah, shoot, Black Elk Peak's probably been the most beautiful one that I've seen, and
Hmm.
that's where the convention is going to be next year. So,
That's right. Yeah.
cheap plug: if you haven't planned on going to the convention, you haven't been to Black Elk Peak, this would be a great time to do both.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. It's a great hike. It's beautiful. That whole area of the country, the Dakotas, is just phenomenal. And there's so much stuff around there too. We got to go to Mount Rushmore, which was like something I always said I wanted to go do, but I never really knew if I was gonna get to go see it. And then like
Hmm.
actually being there, you're like, this is phenomenal, and you're shocked that you're there. And just the areas around it. The geographic center of the United States is in the middle of a field somewhere, about 40 miles, 50
I didn't know
miles
that.
north of there, which is really cool to go see. If you're into tri pointing, there's all kinds of tri points around there. We hopped the barbed wire fence into a random field somewhere to get to the I think it was Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota high point. And just everything you could see along the way there was awesome. I like that one. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, the high point, of Michigan's high point's not necessarily the most outstanding high point in the world, but that area is amazing. Lake
Yeah.
Superior, Painted Rocks, or Picture Rocks, I guess it was called, the national park there. It's just
Yeah.
really cool to go
That's
see
really
and do.
beautiful. Hmm.
Yeah, and go out there. Black Mesa, I felt like you're almost like in another world when you're driving out in the Oklahoma Panhandle out there, and it was great. I think they all have something unique to them.
You're right.
Mount Mitchell is just it's always cool at the top of Mount Mitchell. We hiked it over spring break a couple years ago, and there were icicles still hanging
That's
off
right.
some of the
Yeah.
mountain
I
faces.
did that in the winter too. It was surprising.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I think they all have their own unique charm. There's some that everybody's gonna like more than others, but they all have their unique charm. And I think they also it matters so much like when you did it and why you did it. Um, Driscoll
Hmm.
Mountain will always be really fun to me because it's the first one I took my oldest son to. We
Okay.
just hiked up the top of the mountain and such as it is, and to him, we might as well have been climbing Mount Everest,
Hmm.
but it was just fun. So I think it's always I think so much for people like you. It's always interesting to see all the debates. Like if you put a Facebook post, what's been your favorite high point ever, and you get all these different answers. And I think so much of the different answers probably come from the personal memories people put with it
Yeah.
when they drive when they go to it, and I think that matters. But as far as beauty, I'd have to say Black Elk Peak's been the absolute most like stunning one that I've been
Okay.
to.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. There doesn't have to be a lot of sensation involved in the high points that you do to make them very special. In a trip that my husband and I took from Arizona to North Carolina when we moved, we did Alabama, Mississippi,
Hmm.
Arkansas, that whole just along I-40. And, Mississippi, I'll never forget that, but not because like it was a slog getting up there or
Right.
anything. But I was pregnant and we carried our fat little dog up there that can hardly walk down the block. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is so chaotic, but I love it. It was like our first kind of high point as a family. So
Hmm.
I'll never forget that. And I talk to people all the time that focus on the experience with the person they're with,
Hmm.
and they say, it enhanced the relationship, whatever it was, father, son, husband, wife. That's what made it special. Maybe not necessarily the trail, although we have plenty of those stories too.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. I've done some of them solo before, just on like a
Hmm.
whim over Labor Day weekend over in the southeast, like Georgia, North Carolina. I've done them with just my oldest son, and I've done them with my wife and our son, and they're all different ways. And they do. I think you do. I think you go on a trail with folks. It does give you a kind of a common bond and experience.
Yeah.
I don't know how it questionably enhanced our relationship when we started going down the wrong way from Black Elk Peak and realized we were on the wrong trail for a hot minute. I didn't know how much that was going to enhance our relationship at the time between me and my wife, but no, all those relationship moments that you get to build on the trail. I think we live in such a busy world that I think
Yeah.
people, even inside your house, sometimes you got to be real intentional with the time you spend with folks. And I
Yep.
think sometimes being out in the woods, being on a trail, hiking up a mountain, gives you time to actually be intentional with the people you're with,
You're
and
right.
it's great. It's a great experience.
Yeah. Well, it helps that there's a goal involved when you spend time with people. And speaking of enhanced relationships, I want to talk about the Arizona high point that I did with my then boyfriend, now husband. But I was just ill prepared in terms of nutrition and hydration. I'll just say that. And we ran out of water on the way down. And I have never been that dehydrated in my life. I mean, my lips were just they were peeling, they were purple, and my mouth was just so dry, I couldn't even talk. And we got finally down to the parking lot, and I drank some Pedialyte, drank some water. We got in the car and I was like, we need to go to a gas station. I need to get some Advil, anything. And so right as we're leaving the trailhead, I say, just pull over. I might have to vomit. I might not. I just want to see what happens. And I went into a ditch and I just unleashed fury. And it was like a little vacation for us in Flagstaff. So we had like our bags packed in the trunk. And so there was mouthwash back there. And I said, I popped up just like this monster from a swamp out of the ditch. And I said, can you just go in your bag and get me some mouthwash? We'll never forget that one. I'll tell you that.
Always, yeah, you never quite know. Shooting preparation is so important.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know why I've got this innate fear that I'm gonna run out of water. I don't know if I watched something as a kid. I used to watch
Oh,
like Zorro and
it's a
stuff.
very valid fear.
So like now,
Definitely.
like we're gonna go on a hike. I'm like, it's like 2 miles, and I'm packing like a gallon of water. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not running out. I don't know.
I don't
I don't
care
know where
about
that
weight
comes from.
anymore. The water is everything. Also salt too. But we went to this Mexican restaurant before in Flagstaff the night before, and we just stuffed ourselves. And so we woke up that morning, and I'm like, you know what? I'm still full from dinner last night. I don't need to eat. Well, that was a mistake too.
Yeah, that would get you. It's shoot. My problem has been, yeah, watch out if you get there. You hear a lot of people they do these things. It's like, oh, why did I do this? I had like 5 margaritas the night before.
Yeah.
Gotta watch out. Mexican restaurants they can get you.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you talk about some high points while we're on the subject that maybe didn't go according to plan?
Yeah. So one story that always kind of makes me laugh is Jeremoth Hill in Rhode Island.
Hmm.
Really easy, nothing to it. I couldn't find it. We
I've
drove
heard
from
people
Rhode
say that.
Island. We drove from Rhode Island to Connecticut about 10 times on this trip trying to find it. And I stopped in the gas station and asked somebody, and he looked at me like he had no clue what I was talking about. And finally, I was like, you get one of these things you're like about to lose your mind. So finally, just pulled the car over, and I was like, it's got to be somewhere around here. And then, sure enough, there's a sign sitting on the other side of the road that somehow I'd driven past 10 times, and I never saw it. So that was kind of funny. We were trying to go to Mount Mansfield on the same trip and just got there a little too late. They had closed everything up. So we got the detour to Ben and Jerry's, which is over right by there, which who knew?
Oh,
So that was
cool.
kind of if you hadn't missed one, that was kind of cool.
That's
We
like
nearly
their
ran out of
flagship
gas.
ice cream shop, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's if you've never been, like if you go to Mount Mansfield, you need to go to the Ben and Jerry's ice cream factories.
Okay.
They have you get free ice cream while you go, which is always great. And they
Great.
have like a graveyard of retired flavors or flavors that didn't make it. They have all kinds of really cool stuff. It's really random, but it's really cool. Um, we nearly ran out of gas once in the middle of I don't know where in North Carolina and Virginia because I decided to try to take a back road to a high
Oh,
point and was just relying on GPS. This when I was early in my high pointing days. Note to self:
sure.
GPS doesn't work everywhere.
Yep.
Um, going down the wrong side of Black Elk Peak was interesting, but it turned out to be cool. We got to see a whole lot of new things that we didn't know were
Sure.
there. So that was a lot of fun. At the end of the day, like it's going to be what you make of it.
Mhm.
You plan for the best, but you also need to plan for the worst, and just have
Yep.
ideas like, hey, if something goes wrong, what do I do? I never thought about it when I was younger, 10 years, 7, 8 years ago, taking my kid with me when he was like 5 and 6 on these hikes. One day, my mom was finally like, "What if you get hurt, or what if something happens to you? What's he gonna do?"
Oh, yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I never really thought of that." And so trying
Mhm.
to make plans for all those kind of things help out. But like, if you're on a trip and things aren't working out right, just like still go and enjoy it because odds are you're still gonna get to where you want to go. And if not, you got a great story and it's gonna be there. You can go back and you can go back and do it again. But if I was the one time I thought things would go completely wrong was probably the time I could not find Jeremoth Hill in Rhode Island. That was driving me absolutely crazy. I was just waiting to get pulled over by like highway patrol or something, wondering why is this car going back and forth
Right.
15 times.
Yeah.
Guy running drugs somewhere. What's he doing? I didn't
Right.
know what they were. I didn't know what they were going to think. But no, they all like good and bad. They all have different things that happen along the way, and it's just literally about like, hey, what do I make of this trip, and how do I have a good time with it?
No, you're right. I mean, at least you'll get a good story. Um, Man, running out of gas in Western Carolina, I was in that position once, and I never want to be there again. But I don't even know what road I was on. I don't know what I was doing out there. I was hiking because I live in Central Carolina. That's the only
Mhm.
reason that I would go out there is to enjoy that part of the state. Um, but I was on just a back road and running out of gas, and there was just this random gas station in the middle of nowhere. And so I pull up and I look at this contraption that is supposed to put gasoline in my car. And I'm like, how do I use this? I have never seen anything like this. It doesn't look like the Circle K that's by my house. And I didn't get any cell reception because I was like, maybe I can YouTube this. So I had to go in and ask the gas station owner how to operate, this pump. And oh man, the looks that they gave me were just like, what is she doing here? But she came out and basically pumped the gas for me. There was this thing you had to lift up, and then, oh man, it moved so slow. I think I was there for like 25 minutes and I only got a half tank, and I was like, this is fine. I'm good.
I'll get close enough to walk from here.
Yeah, right.
We we did when we were doing Black Mesa. We had stopped in Boise City, Oklahoma, and there's a
Oh, I
Love's
got
gas
pulled
station
over
there.
there.
Oh yeah, I can see that. They got Speed Trap Central.
The school zone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we we pull into the Loves. I pump the I pump gas and take off and leave the pump in the gas tank and
Oops.
realize it's about. And I had never done that before. I thought it was like actually like really bad. I was not the happiest camper at the time. I was like, great, this high pointing trip just got way more expensive. I just tore up their stuff, and
Yeah.
they're like, no, they're made to break off because people do that all the time. Who knew? But
Oh, good to
that's
know.
always a yeah. So if that ever happens to you, it's gonna probably be okay. But that's a story we all we all get a good laugh at. When we're talking about stories. We've had some weird things happen in Oklahoma. We went to Arkansas's High Point. I guess 2 summers ago, and we decided to go just like try point a couple places around there. You try to use like appropriate language all the time around your kids, and
Sure.
there's all these fireworks stands in Oklahoma, and
Yeah.
it was after the fourth, and somebody said, "What do you think they're going to do?" And I'll never forget. I said, "I think they're about to blow up." And my kid, and my wife both look at me like, "What? You can't say that kind of stuff, son." And we still get a good laugh about that too. But Oklahoma's just had some weird adventures for us, I guess. But
Yeah, it does. I was at the Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado, and I actually went backcountry camping there. If you ever get a chance to do that, to
yeah,
just camp on a sand dune, I was the only person in that park that night. It was awesome. And then the morning, just got back in my car and drove. I was doing a cross country road trip that was at the time it was army related. I had to travel, but I thought I'd just make some fun out of it. So I was heading back to North Carolina and I drove through the Oklahoma Panhandle, which is why I ended up in Boise City. And like I mentioned, it was, school pickup hours or something. Didn't cross my mind. And I was going over the speed limit and I got pulled over. I was 36. It was the first ticket I had ever gotten in my life in this country. That's where that ends. And and so I get pulled over and this guy's talking about a citation and I'm like, what's a citation? What do I do with this? Like, what's the next step? Because I just don't know. And so he explained how tickets work to me,
hmm
basically. So I get back to North Carolina and I send in, the check or whatever to Boise City clerk. And I wanted to just call them to make sure that they got it. And so I picked up the phone, I dialed, Boise City county clerk or whatever. And this girl picks up, she goes, hello. I'm like, am I calling the right place? And I explained the situation. I said, I mailed this check in. Did you get it? She goes, oh, hold on. And you could tell she just put her hand over the phone and just looked over. And the person that she needed was right there because that's how small the town was.
right.
And she's like, what's your name? And I said, oh, it's Lauren. And they said, did we get Lauren's check? And they're like, yeah, we did. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the smallest town.
Yeah, no, it's that's kind of the fun though, isn't it? Like because you do go to places like you never would have probably gone to if not for like going on random trips and going and doing
Right.
having these random goals in place. Like you know, I can't imagine a time I ever would have been in Boise City,
No.
Oklahoma, unless I was going to Black Mesa. We did the Fourth of July in Mucinening, Michigan, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you if you're
Oh.
ever going to be up that way, like you need to go because it's their Fourth of July is amazing. We're up there for the
Mhm.
fourth, and like it was like. the way the 4th of July used to be. Like they had watermelon eating contests, egg toss contests, which was cool. My son and I won. He's like
Oh,
standing
cool.
with his heels on Lake Superior, and I'm trying not to throw the egg, and make him fall in the lake. And as we're so far apart, but it takes you to these great places. I was like, I would do the 4th of July here. I would drive 22 hours to Mucinex every year and go do the 4th of July
Yeah.
because it's just that kind of a cool place to go. And
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, you get to see and do, and it's just the adventures you get to have are the best.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit about how you got involved with the High Pointers Club and how you landed the position that you currently have with the club?
Yeah. So I joined the club, like I said, found out high pointing was even a thing. Didn't ever think about it being like a thing. And like, oh man, all these other people do it. Cool. I'm not the only crazy person out here thinking about
Yeah.
this. And so sent in my we did a couple high points, sent in my stuff to become a member. Started getting A to Z,
Hmm.
and been a member for about a year and reached out, and I think they were putting something out about needing volunteers. And I just emailed out like, hey, I don't don't know the most about hiking and climbing mountains. I live on the Mississippi coast. It's elevation 5 feet here, but if I can help out with like anything else, like website, I know a little bit about websites or social media or whatever. Y'all feel free, just holler at me. I'll be glad to help. And so I think it was the Mitchellers had reached out to me about seeing if I could help some with
Hmm.
website and social media. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I started doing some of the Facebook stuff, and do a little bit of the website. And then there was they transitioned newsletter editors a little while later. So I did a little bit helping with that. Some with just some content with Eric when he was running the newsletter,
Hmm.
and but mostly working with getting people who missed an issue, didn't get an issue mailed to them for whatever reason, helping get those to the right people, helping edit, proofread, those kind of things like that. And then from there, I started having to do a lot of stuff with membership, who was Todd Curry and his wife at the time. And because, we had to check, like, hey, this person's telling me they didn't get a newsletter. Was that because, like, they have a wrong address or are they
Yeah.
actually members? That kind of thing. And really, truly, a lot of times when people don't get a newsletter, it's usually one of those two things: membership expired or address has changed.
Hmm.
And sometimes they just don't get there for whatever reason. Sometimes they just go to a black hole. Um, but so I started working a little bit with Todd with that, and then Todd wanted to transition out of it, and so he somehow twisted my arm into helping take over membership. And so I started doing that in 2022, around January 22, and that's been a lot of fun, really, because
Yeah.
I feel like I get to talk to a whole lot of people in the club
Hmm.
through email. I get, they're sending me their updates, and it's just fun. Like, there's one family, the Odette family. We just posted about them on Facebook recently, and I think they've done like 20 high points this summer, something crazy like that.
Wow.
They've done New England, they've gone out west. They're sending in updates from, like Mount Washington and updates from Kings Peak. I mean, like they're just getting to go all over the place this summer, and it's fun. You got the people who are excited; they're getting close to getting to 48 or 50.
Hmm.
You got the folks who are excited because they knocked out the first five in the last two
Hmm.
months, and you remember how fun that was when you were there, just getting started. So it's a blast, just getting to communicate and be in touch with so many folks in the club. Membership takes up some time. It's tedious at times, but just getting to interact with so many folks in the club is great. I feel like I get to know a lot of stories, and a lot of other folks who volunteer and do different things
Yeah.
maybe don't get to know those stories as much as I get to do. So it's really awesome.
Now, in the latest issue of Apex to Zenith that just came out, I think it was 137.
Hmm.
I think I read in the beginning that Tom and Tommy, the co-editors of the magazine, stopped by Biloxi, Mississippi, and got a
They
picture
did.
with you. It was like in the, page 2 or 3 or something like that, and hung out with you. And they were in Chapel Hill not too long ago, and I,
Hmm.
I got to hang out with them too. They're just such a riot. I feel like I'm in a Seinfeld episode when I talk to them.
Yes, yeah, you can definitely see. I don't know which one is Kramer sliding in the door, but it's I mean, maybe Tommy. I don't know, but it is funny though, because so I've been doing stuff with the club since like 2017, 2018, right?
Hmm.
When Tom and Tommy came through Biloxi, that was the first time I ever met anybody in the club in person.
Okay. Okay.
And so, like, because like I'd never been able to make it to a convention, they always either felt like, well, my kid was in an all-star tournament right before I was going, before we had staff coming back on campus, that kind of thing. So I'd never been able to go. And so they were the first folks from the club I actually had met in person. I had email with people forever, text with people, talked on the phone with people, but had never been on, I guess, Zoom calls or whatever with people before, but had
Yeah.
actually like in person. Tom and Tommy are the first folks from the club I had ever met, and we had a great time. We hung out at this cool little place called the Reef. You get good views of the water from there. It's right there on the beach, and hung out for a while, and then it worked out. I got to go to the convention in Georgia, and that was great. I finally got to meet all these people I'd been emailing with for years, and
Mhm.
it was really awesome to finally get to meet so many folks in the club. It was great.
You're right. Now, sometimes when I ask podcast guests if they're members of the High Pointers Club, they'll say, I think I was at one point. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Um, can you explain how that works and what you're doing to remind people of
Yeah.
their membership timeline?
So like membership, everybody thinks like because like the way it's phrased like a 1 year membership, 2 year membership, 3 year membership, and that's on the assumption that you'll get 4 newsletters a year. But depending when you join, like so we just cut off membership or the mailing list for this next upcoming newsletter 138. The membership mailing list cut off on August 18th. We just gotta have so much lead time to get a correct mailing list to the company. And
Yeah.
so if you joined, for example, let's say you joined the club August 22 and you just missed that cutoff, well, in 1 year you might only get 3 issues because it's a quarterly mailing, so you might only get 3 issues. So the way membership really works, when it says 1 year, that's 4 issues of the magazine. 2 years is 8, 3 years is 12.
Okay.
And so your membership really lasts as many magazines as you get, 4 per year. And if you're ever wondering when you're going to run out, you can look on the back of the magazine. It tells you you have 2 issues left, 3 issues left, 5 issues,
Okay.
whatever. But something else I try to do, because if you're like me, you don't remember to look at things, or you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and you forget about it. So what I started doing with membership is I think after 137 shipped out, that was our most recent one. Go through the database, find out who's on membership expired at 137, and I send you a little email reminder that says, "Hey, don't forget, if you really enjoy A to Z and being a member of the High Pointers Club, you got to join before 138 comes out, because you're not going to get 138 because your membership ran out at 137." And I just try to nudge people, help them remember that's coming up. We post on social media, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so we've been more active with emails as a club probably in the last year than we have in a while. We emailed stuff out about elections
Yeah.
for board officers, which I don't remember us necessarily doing in the past. And sending out reminders about your membership expiring. So if you're not getting any emails from anybody about High Pointers Club, check your spam or shoot us. We got a form actually, or you can send an email. It's hpjustinsutton@gmail.com. You can email me and I can tell you, hey, if your membership's out, if it's not current, I can tell you what your email address is, because maybe you're not getting emails because it's going to an old email that you don't use anymore, or it's going to your spam or something. But you should have been getting, everybody who's in the club should have gotten communication from us a few times at least in the last year or so. But just try and do little things to make it just easier for people to update the High Point counts instead of having to send emails. When you renew or you become a new member, you get an email from us that gives you a link to a Google form. If you ever need to update your address, your account, or your email, you can
Hmm.
just fill it out on that form. I try to streamline things. It makes it easier on my end too. They're all in one place, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But just try to make it easier for our members to do things they need to do, like renew their membership, update their High Point counts, that kind of thing.
Okay. And I'll put that email address in the show notes for listeners who
Oh,
are
perfect.
interested. Yeah. Now, I like to finish out podcasts with the same handful of questions. So I'll
All
start
right.
with this one. How has the outdoors and high pointing enriched your and your family's lives?
I think the experiences we get to spend together as a family.
Hmm.
The day to day grind of life is tough. I know a lot of folks who listen to your podcast, they're working parents, right? And
Hmm.
it's a rush. You get your kid out the door to school, and then you go to work, you get home, and there's your kids' after school activities, whether they play sports or if it's just homework, whatever that is. And plus the things you still have to do yourself running a household. And time becomes, it's a very precious commodity at home. And so I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we have days that we spend that we don't, that we don't spend the way we wish we would have, in that time
Hmm.
we have together. And I think when you go on these trips and you're, like with us, you're in a car for 22 hours going somewhere like South Dakota or Michigan. It's a lot of forced family time, but it's usually fun. Like
Yeah.
one of my favorite stories, we're driving somewhere and we're like playing a game like who can name the song the fastest using only 8-bit versions of the song. And, like or like Mario Paint version of the song. And like so ridiculous, but so much fun.
Hmm.
And so I think just that time you spend together, it's enriching. I think time in nature is always enriching for everybody. I don't know what it does. It's like a detox. I
Yep.
think it just takes a lot of the negative out. There's times like I'll just sit around, I was like, man, I really wish I could just go up in the mountains this weekend
Hmm.
and just try like just to clear your head a little bit. And the time you spend together on the trail and you're stopping and you're just talking, you're being with each other. That just intentional time together, I think, really just enriches and enhances our relationships, and it's great memories. Like I can be 70, 80 years old, and I'll still think about some of these trips we've taken together as a family, and that's the kind of stuff you're going to smile about at the end.
I agree. And the last question I like to ask people, and it's mostly for me because I'm always looking for something new to watch or read or listen to. Do you have any favorite outdoor based documentaries you watch or books you read or podcasts you listen to?
You know, so this sounds funny, obviously cheap plug, but I love when A to Z comes out. I love the stories in
Yeah.
there, of course.
Yeah.
But really and truly, I'm a sucker for anything that comes on like National Geographic or the History Channel or travel, anything like that. If it's anything about outdoor stuff, I'm like, oh, let's just see what this is about. Let's go and see what's on here. What are they showing? What are they telling? Um, One of the things I have set up with the club is I do news alerts for all the high points, so that way we can find content and whatnot to put on the website or
Yeah,
on the
those are
on
good.
the social
Hmm.
media. And like I'll get suckered in. It's like 10 things you didn't know about Delaware or whatever. I'm like, oh, what did I not know about Delaware? Those kind of things. Just absolutely, you can get suckered into all that kind of stuff. So basically, if it's anything about outdoors or if it's anything about like going on trips or like just people's documentaries about going out and exploring. I kind of like just to find it all and just
Hmm.
find what you can and read. Nothing, not necessarily one thing in particular, but just all of it. It's just every story is so different,
Yeah,
and you've seen that through this podcast. Everybody's stories are so different. It's just fun to try to consume whatever you can find and hear what other people have done along the way.
you're right. There was a documentary that my husband and I watched not too long ago, and it was called Path of the Panther, and it's on
Hmm.
Disney Plus, and it's about trying to reintroduce the panther population in Florida, and it follows mostly one guy's kind of quest to do it, and
Hmm.
he has a team, of course, but it has a lot to do with their migration corridor or the wildlife corridor for the panther and how they're trying to preserve it because right now a lot of the panthers are like being run over on Florida interstates and stuff like that. And there's this like one panther, I forget what they named it, but they kind of follow it throughout the documentary and you get like so attached to this animal. You're like, oh, I hope he makes it, and like, oh, he's made it, and like, oh my gosh. And it's such a cool story. And if you had told me like a panther, Florida, check it out, I would have been like, yeah, maybe later. But just the effort and the passion that these people put into reintroducing this Florida panther is so cool. It actually makes me want to go down there.
Oh yeah, no, that is cool. All that stuff's great. I think that's one of the things that's so cool what we do though too. It's like all the outdoors. Like you really realize how special all of it is.
Hmm.
And not even
Hmm.
just about. I think it makes you appreciate all of it more. We went down the
Yeah.
Everglades before, and we went to the Orange Bowl when Mississippi State made it. Because I was like, they're never going to go back again. Better go to this game. And we went to the Orange Bowl. But my son and I spent a day down in the Everglades, south of Homestead, and there was signs like Panther Crossing, and you had to put
Yeah.
tarps over your car because vultures will rip up the rubber off your windshield. And
Whoa.
I was like, "Where am I?" It's like Jurassic
Wow.
Park or something. But yeah, it makes you appreciate the work people do, whether it's wildlife conservation, like you're talking about with the panthers, or the conservation people put into keeping the trails up and keeping
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
natural, clean, and
Hmm.
there's so much work that goes into so much of what we do that we never see from people not in the
Hmm.
club, just other volunteers and other organizations or federal agencies, state agencies working these things. And like, it makes you really appreciate the efforts that everybody goes to keep the outdoors what it is. And kind of a reminder that we all need to do our part with it too.
You're right. And again, here's another plug. The High Pointers Foundation does a lot of great work to,
Hmm.
you know, maintain accessibility to some of the high points that are on private land, to maintain, the trails, the high points themselves, the benches. And I think I did an episode with, I forget what number episode it was, but Robin Watson was on the show
Hmm.
talking about the foundation. And I think the work that they do is just great to just, maintain what we do and keep the places that we love looking good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Those benches come in handy too, especially when they got some.
Yeah.
There's one I think about mile one, I think it is in Oklahoma under a shade tree when it's 100 degrees beating down
Yeah.
on you. Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's a team effort. And everybody's got a part they can play in it, and
Mhm.
just being good stewards matters so much.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, Justin, thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to me about high pointing and the work that you do for the club. It really means a lot. And I'm excited for the direction that the club is heading and the role that you play in that direction. So thanks for being here. And it was so cool to listen to your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to, and can't wait to hear all the other stories as they keep coming out on your podcast.
Thanks very much.